Washington Journal continues.
We want to talk politics, the Republican Party, and the Christian conservative vote. We're talking with Gary Marx. He's the executive director of the Faith and Freedom Coalition, wrapping up its weekend conference here in Washington, D.C. Thanks very much for being with us.
Great to be with you, Steve.
One of the headlines from the New York Times, the conference offering a tryout for presidential hopefuls. Was it that?
I think it was. All of them really needed to come out and speak to this core audience of values voters, plus the new fervor of the Tea Party movement. And I think all of them had an opportunity to make their case in unique and different ways. Some of them had more ground to cover than others. Some of them are new candidates. Some of them we've seen before and have a record. And I think we're looking forward to continuing to meet with them. We had a huge event in Iowa. This is our next event in D.C. We'll continue to have candidate forums in early primary states like Florida in September, and then South Carolina, another event in Iowa. So they're going to have multiple opportunities really to reach out to this core base that makes up the base of the primary process. Social conservatives are a dominant majority in 11 of the early primary states, and add to that Tea Party voters, and in every single one of the early primary states, we're going to know that this is the core base that every single one of these candidates has to have in order to win the nomination and then face off with Barack Obama in 2012.
We, by the way, have posted all of the speeches on our website at cspan.org, and we provided live coverage of the speeches over the weekend, Friday and yesterday. One of those speaking was Jon Huntsman. He delivered remarks Friday evening. He is in New Hampshire this weekend, telling the Associated Press that he's going to bypass the Iowa caucuses, put his efforts into New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Florida. Your reaction to that?
Sure. He had to make a strategic decision, I think, just because, you know, he's a new candidate, and he's decided that because of his stance on ethanol, he's not going to go to Iowa. It's not so much a reflection on whether he wants to win social conservative voters or not, because he said he is going to South Carolina. So he understands those are important voters to win. He had a great personal, compelling message talking about his adopted children and his stance on life. So he had a good tryout, a good first chance for people to get to know him. He's probably the least known of all the candidates.
Here's a portion of former ambassador, former governor of Utah, Jon Huntsman, and likely to be an official Republican presidential candidate by the end of June.
As governor of Utah, I supported and signed every pro-life bill that came to my desk. I signed the bill that made second trimester abortions illegal and increased the penalty for doing so. I signed the bill to allow women to know about the pain an abortion causes an unborn child. I signed the bill requiring parental permission for an abortion. I signed the bill that would trigger a ban on abortions in Utah if Roe versus Wade were overturned. You see, I do not believe the Republican Party should focus only on our economic life to the neglect of our human life. That is a trade we should not make.
Gary Marx, the comments of former Ambassador Jon Huntsman, who some have called a moderate Republican in Utah. Can he win the base of the party as he moves ahead for a likely GOP presidential bid?
I think what he laid out there, that's the message. He's talked about you've got to have understanding of the economic issues and the moral issues at the same time. We've got to have all of our candidates understand how to kind of walk and chew gum at the same time. The base of our party understands that. That's why we're the Faith and Freedom Coalition. We have voters who deeply care about the social issues, but I think everybody understands that this particular election, the concern really is going to be about the jobs and economy in a leading way, and all of our supporters, you know, are just as passionate about those. They don't want to see those social issues left behind. They still want to see a candidate understand the importance of the sanctity of life and sanctity of marriage. I think Jon Huntsman spoke to that eloquently, and he's off to a good start.
This is a headline from the Wall Street Journal last week. Projected state deficit shadows Tim Pawlenty's bid. The focus on Minnesota politics. Jonathan Weissman writing that the projected multi-billion-dollar deficit in Minnesota, where Tim Pawlenty was governor until recently, has begun to nag Mr. Pawlenty's presidential candidacy as he quests to assume the mantle of a fiscal truth-teller. Tim Pawlenty also speaking to your gathering over the weekend. Here's part of what he had to say.
Traditional marriage matters, and we need to tell each other and the country that we need to keep traditional marriage elevated on a platform. All domestic relationships are not the same as traditional marriage. It needs to be protected. And a mom and a dad and parents matter in a child's life for obvious reasons. And so it is a cornerstone of our nation. It's a cornerstone of our social fabric to define marriage as between a man and a woman. I'm glad to be the co-author of the Defense of Marriage Act in Minnesota.
Again, the comments of Tim Pawlenty on the social issues, but when it comes to the fiscal issues, according to the Wall Street Journal, Tim Pawlenty using short-term funding maneuvers that were used during his tenure to patch over budget shortfalls to create a balanced budget when, in fact, now the state is facing huge deficits.
He's definitely going to have some questions to answer there with Tea Party voters and explain his record. As far as the social issues go, you know, I couldn't have said it better myself, what he laid out there. He's striving to fill some of that void, I think, left by Mike Huckabee, who's not in the race. Tim Pawlenty is an evangelical himself. He has a great background in terms of his record. He has an opportunity to make sure people understand he can stand on results and actions. They want to hear that, not just rhetoric. So he did himself a lot of good this weekend, made a lot of strides with our members and supporters. But yeah, he's going to have some questions to answer on the economic front, and I think you'll see that in the coming days and weeks as he continues to make sure he speaks not just to the social issues, but the economic issues as well. We expect that.
Also this past week, former Governor Mitt Romney officially entering the race. He did so in Stratham, New Hampshire, one of the photographs in the from the New York Times this morning, and he